Thank you, everyone. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Andrea Garcia, and I am this year's I-Day Director. Firstly, I would like to welcome you personally to the Challenge of Change. This morning, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Chris Duncan. Chris is the EVP and COO of Decisely, a leading employee benefits insurtech firm based out of Atlanta. Prior to Decisely, Chris was Epic's Chief Growth Officer, a partner with Mercer, U.S. Health and Benefits Business Brokerage Leader, the VP of Finance, Chief Risk Officer of Delta Airlines, and Director of Risk and Security at Frito-Lay KFC. And as the CFO and CEO of several small privately held companies in the insurance brokerage, technology, energy business. Chris holds a BBA in marketing and an MBA in finance and risk management, both from the University of Georgia. Go Dogs! In 2003, he was the alumnus of the year for the Terry College of Business in the Risk Management and Insurance program at Georgia. In addition to being a CPCU, he serves on the Brantley Risk and Insurance Center Board at App State University in Boone, North Carolina, where he has helped create the first ever benefits minor degree available in the U.S. Please help me in welcoming a fellow dog and CPCU, Chris Duncan.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? So, with that sort of introduction, it reminds me what my wife, my friends, and my family say that I'm much more impressive on paper than I am in person. It is truly a privilege to be here today, and I really want to say thank you to the CPCU Society. This is one of the premier events in Atlanta for the risk and insurance community, and for me to be here today, quite frankly, is to see a lot of old friends' faces in the audience, as well as new friends. This is like one of the highlights of my year. I'm so excited to be here because today I want to share with you part of my passion for what this industry is and what we do and how what we do matters. So, also you'll notice we've got a couple of cameras here. And Decisely is filming this today, not because I'm interested in seeing myself on YouTube, folks. No one really wants to see me on YouTube. But we're heavily involved with collegiate risk management insurance education. I'm involved with App State, I'm a big fan of Georgia, and I'm involved with various universities. And I know the CPCU Society, partners with this goes for scholarships. And so we're filming this because we want to offer this particular session to any university who wants to use this in recruiting and educating the next generation of risk management. So we're filming it. And by the way, you guys are not off the hook. I want you guys to help me towards the end of this thing to try to welcome and encourage the next generation of students and student leaders towards our industry. Okay? So, I want to tell you a story. Several stories, in fact. So, I have a hero. I'm going to introduce you to her in the course of this presentation. My hero is Grace Hopper. She's an amazing lady. She's the world's least known, at least in my book, most influential risk manager I've ever met. Actually, I haven't met her, but I feel like I've met her because I've studied her over the years. She passed away a few years ago, and she's had a major influence on my life. And so, towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to take a deeper introduction with Grace to you. I'm going to share my Grace with you. And I'm hoping in the moments ahead that you'll come away with a greater appreciation for the importance of the risk and insurance industry in terms of what we do and how we make a difference in the world around us. So, how does what we do matter? Well, let's start with some easy questions. Follow the money. If you're picking an industry to invest in, to have a career in, the risk and insurance industry, by the way, I'll include benefits in this. Benefits. This is a P&C presentation. Hold with me here. I spent 25 years on the risk management side, property casualty, risk management, finance. I spent the past 7 or 8 years on the employee benefits side. Benefits is the management of the personal health risk of individuals in a nation. We're in the same boat together, folks. So if you allow me, if you combine together the risk and insurance industry, all of us here in this room, along with your benefit brethren, we account for 25% of the gross domestic product in the United States. 1 in every $4 spent in our economy is in our world. That's a lot of money, folks. A lot of money. Within that, 18% of that 25% comes from the employee benefits area. That's the area that I live in mostly today. And that includes private insurance, Medicaid, and Medicare, as well as children's health care insurance programs. 70% of that is the traditional property casualty industry. There's a lot of money flowing through our industry. A lot of people think, and there's a lot of prognostication around what's going to be the impact of technology in our industry. Certainly, technology has disrupted vast industries. The travel agency industry is a really great example, which is now pretty much all done, mostly done over the internet. And some people think that the insurance industry is ripe for technology disruption. I'm not one of those people, and let me tell you why. Yes, technology and artificial intelligence and computers pulls together metadata and amazing insights, but it's what we do with that information. It's the human judgment of underwriters, claims people, risk managers. You can't respond to a disaster without understanding the human element of what it means to be involved in this sort of devastation. So the soft skills of who we are, our judgment, our integrity, our continuing education, combined with technology means this industry, of all industries, is ripe for continued growth. Technology is a great tool, but at the end of the day, it's people that make the difference. So, the industry controls a lot of money. Unemployment, that's another really great metric of how do we matter. Well, if you go back to risk and insurance plus benefits, 2.7 million people are employed in the property casualty risk insurance industry in the United States. That's roughly the size of the state of Kansas. Now, if you include healthcare and benefits, healthcare and benefits is the largest single employer in the United States. Also one of the fastest growing. That industry employs over 13 million people. And if you combine the state of Kansas, along with benefits, which by the way is roughly equal to the population of the state of New York, 2 out of our 50 states, from an employment standpoint, is in our industry. So we spend a lot of money, and we employ a lot of people. But spending a lot of money and employing a lot of people isn't quite enough. You have to add value. You have to add value. And I would argue that a world without insurance is a boat that doesn't float. We enable our entire economy to innovate, to create, to grow, to deploy capital. The world doesn't work without the lubricant of the risk and insurance industry feeding the engine that is our U.S. economy. Planes don't fly without insurance. A little more on that later. The internet, you can't transact really on the internet without cyber risk insurance and all the other sorts of risk management tools and resources that come with what's happening in our internet-based economy. Construction comes to a screeching halt. Lenders won't lend unless we're able to do our jobs and deploy insurance solutions to encourage growth and innovation. And even on esoteric things like medical breakthroughs, unless you can allocate the risk for medical products, pharmacy, treatment, and diagnosis, and have the appropriate risk and insurance solutions for that, we can't advance as a society in terms of taking care of our personal health risks. Insurance really, really matters in terms of what we do and how we add value to the economy. So now I'm going to kind of introduce you to 3 different short stories. Short stories that I experienced, for better or worse, but where our industry made a massive difference in our nation, in our economy, and our business growth. I had the good fortune, and by the way, best opportunity of my life. I had the good fortune of becoming the chief risk officer, actually the director of risk management at the ripe old age, I think it says 38, in 1999. And so the little thing about Delta, right? So I love Delta. Best risk management job, pinnacle of my career. Delta is filled with two types of people. You're either an airplane junkie or you're a hopeless romantic. I'm a little bit of both. Because for me, when I left my office at the end of the day and I went out to my car in the parking lot, directly across the parking lot was the runway. And I saw my planes taking off. And those planes were filled with people trying to achieve a dream. It could be a businessman going to the next city to do a deal. It could be a family looking forward to creating marvelous memories on some fabulous vacation that they've never been to before. It could be family members reuniting. I still get all geeked out and love to go sit at the airport between flights and just people watch. Delta is filled with a bunch of airplane geeks and romantics, just like me. Well, this was great. And to be promoted to the chief risk officer of Delta, that happened the week before 9/11. And so I went from having a pretty straightforward job where I had risk insurance and claims. Yes, I was one of the really popular people at the party where everyone complained about airline tickets and all that. I mean, come on, we're insurance people. You know we're the most fun people at the party, right? And I got even more fun because in addition to those prior duties, Delta was crazy enough to add to my job as a chief risk officer. I then had little small functional areas called internal audit and information security and privacy. By the way, I was scared to death. This was all new territory for me, but what the heck, let's go do it. But what I didn't know is that a week later, our world changed. The most formative event in a generation happened on 9/11. We all remember where we were and how we felt. I still get shivers. I still get emotional thinking about that day. And not only was that a world-changing event for us and our nation, it was a near extinction event for the airlines. We didn't know if you were going to fly. Gas prices were going through the roof. We had no idea if the terrorists were going to attack again. We couldn't borrow money in the open marketplace. We didn't know from day to day what was going to happen next. And here I was as a chief risk officer of this very interesting experience. So what happened? Now I'm getting a little bit into the story. I happened to be on an airplane like many of you were on 9/11, headed to Burlington, Vermont to sign a captive insurance deal. Yes, here we are, insurance yet again. And I got diverted to Buffalo, New York. I had to camp out in the hotel for 2 days looking for a rental car. Finally found one. Took me 2 days to drive back from Buffalo, New York. When I got back, on the very, I don't know if it was the first day I got back, but it was within a few days of me getting back to Atlanta. Our leadership put me on a plane, and I was on one of the very first planes going to Ronald Reagan Airport after 9/11. I remember I had window seats on the right-hand side of the aircraft. And if you flown into Ronald Reagan Airport, that flight path winds along the Potomac River, and it passes by the Pentagon. And I saw from that right-hand window the gaping hole in the Pentagon from the airplane, and the people's lives in start. And when I landed, the reason why I was there was Congress and the administration desperately needed information on what insurance was all about and how to address this crisis that the aviation industry had fallen into. So what was that crisis? Well, I can't go into all the specific details of Delta because it's still confidential information, but I will tell you that Delta, my terrorism insurance bill, pre-9/11, the week before 9/11, was roughly $2 million a year, give or take $1 million. A lot of money at a Delta that's around here. 2 weeks after 9/11, my annualized terrorism insurance bill was well over $150 million. If you look at it from an industry standpoint, the entire U.S. airline industry spent about $40 to $50 million in terrorism insurance the week before 9/11. 2 weeks after 9/11, which by the way, there's a lot of underwriters in the room, maybe even aviation underwriters in the room. They did what they had to do. They canceled all the airlines in their terrorism insurance because they had the same problem we had. They didn't know if additional terrorist attacks were going to happen. They didn't know what was going to happen to their reinsurance post 9/11, so they did what they had to do. And they canceled and rewrote us at some astronomical premium. That astronomical premium went from $40 million free to well over $1 billion after. Again, folks, we didn't have money. So we had a major crisis on our hands. And so the terrorists grounded the U.S. airlines once. But we, as an industry and government and the insurance industry, weren't going to let us stay grounded over insurance. What was once a backwater little issue of Delta Airlines became front and center in our very survival of whether we could survive this near extinction event. So what happened? Let's kind of finish the story out. I kind of built up the suspense, right? So what happened? Well, I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., visiting with lots of congressmen, went to the White House twice. That was kind of really cool. And other risk managers were also doing the same thing. So it wasn't just me. We was all a big team effort. And everyone was trying to figure out how to solve for this insurance crisis. I'm going to take a little side story here because I got to tell you my favorite sort of idea that came up, which didn't work, and thankfully so, but I got to tell it just because it's funny. So it actually came from the CEO of one of the insurance companies represented in this room. I'm not going to name that firm because that would just be impolite. But there was a very powerful insurance company whose CEO saw opportunity. And so that CEO wrote a letter to the Secretary of Transportation where it was a he, maybe it's a little bit of a hint, offered to solve for the aviation insurance crisis for all the U.S. airlines. This company was willing to provide $1 billion aggregate limit for all the U.S. airlines, not $1 billion for each one of the airlines and $1 billion for all, for the cost of a Coca-Cola. We're done. No, we're not quite done. What's the cost of a Coca-Cola? Come on, $1, $2? Well, back then, it was about $1.25 to $1.50. The problem with that pricing structure, by the way, the U.S. airlines carry over 800 million passenger segments a year. Who are the underwriters in the room? Come on, raise your hands. It's always the people in the back that are the underwriters. All right, so underwriters in the room. I did go to the University of Georgia back when the standards were a lot lower, but even I can do this particular math. So $1.50 times 800 million is $1.2 billion in annualized premiums for what? $1 billion aggregate limit. Okay, how many of you underwriters in the back room want this deal? This is a good deal right here. Yeah, I got a hand raised right here. That's an automatic $200 million profit each year. Well, fortunately, that idea didn't exactly get off the ground, and there were other ideas that were out there. I got involved with one of them and helped sponsor it, where we were going to create a risk retention group, essentially a captive for the U.S. airline industry, and use the federal government as a reinsurer. And then, as long as we didn't have any losses, over time we build up capital, we become self-sustaining. That was the big idea that we were working on. Neither of these two things happened. What happened, because we didn't have any money, is we kind of threw ourselves on the mercy of the U.S. government. And so all of that time that myself and other risk managers of the airlines were spending in Washington really paid off. Because what we were able to do is, with some help from this guy, Jack Kingston, Set your politics aside, folks, Democrats or Republicans. This guy's a hero in my book because Jack Kingston took up the issue of the industry. And so between Jack Kingston and him helping with a lot of conversations with the rest of Congress, we were able to insert some language in the Airline Stabilization Act that allowed the U.S. government to act as the insurer of last resort for the U.S. airlines. And that insurance regime continued for a number of years until risk management came in, and we had the TSA, and we had secured the cockpits, and we had sharp watch lists, and we had emergency response for additional terrorist attacks. We got the risk control enough in place so the commercial insurance industry could come back into it, and the commercial insurance industry took back over. Go back to the U.S. government. It wasn't a free lunch. We never asked for a free lunch. All we wanted was a chance, just a chance, because that's what we needed. And the U.S. government and the airlines and the insurance industry and the brokerage community came together to make this work. And I have to say, I don't want to get into a political conversation. I'm sure many of you find the partisan politics of today as distasteful as I do. But I got to tell you, those weeks and months after 9/11 where our Congress and our administration and private enterprise, the airlines and the insurance community and the brokerage community came together to solve for the largest individual insurance crisis in an industry ever. Man, when we come together to do amazing things, it's amazing. So does insurance matter? It was literally the wind beneath our wings that allowed this industry and our hometown airline to continue to serve this nation. Man, I still get chills over that one. All right, enough of Delta. Story number 2. So, my first job as a risk manager, I was the director of risk management for Kentucky Fried Chicken in Louisville, Kentucky. Loved it. Man, it was great working for that company. It was amazing. Loved Louisville, Kentucky. And we were owned by PepsiCo. PepsiCo at that time had a big restaurant division, KFC, Taco Bells, and Pizza Huts. And by the way, the KFC guys, my company, we were the worst performing restaurant chain in the division. And we had a problem. We needed to grow our sales. And so strategically, the company came up with a really bright idea that if we were to license Taco Bell and put it inside of a KFC store, you would love us even more. And so, I mean, to be really blunt, the idea was there's a certain demographic that loves fried chicken and there's a certain younger demographic. KFC had a lot of older demographics. If we had younger Taco Bell demographics and we put a Taco Bell inside of a KFC store, we would dramatically increase sales, but we would only have to invest a little bit of money. And so that's just good business. If you can get a big return on a little bit of capital, that's good business. So strategically, we said, we need to go do this. Sometimes we in the industry, as a risk and insurance industry, we get a bad rap. They just say no all the time. This isn't covered. Risk managers say it's too risky to do this. Blah, 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 blah. I think the job of our industry is to get to yes, to find a way to say yes. We had to find a way to say yes with KFC and Taco Bell. Why? Well, let me give you a little lesson in quick service restaurants. Picture a KFC. A KFC is a manufacturing plant. Raw chicken is the input, and it comes in on the back of a truck, and it's stored in a cooler, and then we take those wonderful 11 herbs and spices, and we manufacture it, called cooking, and then we serve it to our clients. It's delicious, it's wonderful. Well, a Taco Bell is not a manufacturing plant. A Taco Bell, little secret here, it's an assembly plant. The food's pre-cooked at the factory. It comes in a plastic container or a box, sealed against contamination, stored in a cooler. It's reheated. Now it's reheated, but it's never reheated to the point of such a high temperature that it kills any germs
that it might have picked up along the way. Don't freak out here, folks. This is how the real world works. So we had a problem, because how many of you clean your kitchen counters when you're cooking chicken, right? You're freaking out whether or not you're going to do cross-contamination, right? So here we are, we're trying to mix raw chicken, a manufacturing plant, with an assembly plant. Didn't work that well. And so in the initial piloting phase, we just had a few stores out there. One of the things that I did as a risk manager along with some of our food safety brethren is we were doing independent food safety testing, right? Trust but verify. You know, that's a good thing on the risk management side. It's all about data. Anyway, so we found that maybe it wasn't as good as it should have been, right? There were some issues. So let me flash forward. This is one of the scariest moments of my life. And I still think about it. So picture this. This is David Novak. He was the CEO of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and my boss's boss's boss. He went on to be the CEO of Yum Brands and expanded it to a global brand. By the way, he's probably worth $500 million now. He's an amazing guy, written great books on leadership, great books on marketing, brilliant. But back then, he was the lowly CEO of Little Kentucky Fried Chicken. And we're all sitting in a room, right? Picture a big board table, and this guy's sitting at the head of the table. He's dad. And around the table are heavy hitters. It's the VP of finance, it's the head of operations, it's the head of marketing, all these people. I'm not sitting at the table. I don't deserve to sit at the table. I'm sitting like 2 rows back from the table. And this is a go, no-go meeting where CEO is asking all of the people that essentially have a vote, are we ready to go and can we do it? Everybody around the table says yeah. And then it became my turn, second tier guy sitting on the back row. And I say something along the lines of this, because I'm thinking I'm going to get fired. I try to do it the right way. Say politically incorrect things politically correctly, right? That's always really smart if you're a risk manager. And I said something along the lines of, you know, we've done some independent food safety testing, and we're seeing some evidence that we're still struggling operationally in terms of being able to produce both of these products simultaneously and do it in an appropriate manner. Sounded pretty good, didn't it? Essentially, I was the one dissenting vote in the room. All heck broke loose. People's bonuses and careers are kind of at stake at this point, and I'm just a slowly 30-year-old sitting in there. And so that's the challenge, right? So we're trying to find a way to say yes, and then 2 things happened. The first one was a lesson in leadership, and the second is good risk management. Us in the room. The lesson in leadership came from this guy, David Novak. Picture again, we're back at that conference table, big conference room table, and everybody's sitting down, and David Novak stands up. Everybody else is sitting down, they kind of look up at Novak. What is he doing? And the room gets quiet, deathly quiet. And he looks around the room, and he catches the eye of everybody in the room, and then he looks back at the back row, where all you underwriters are at, and he says something like this: we'll do this when we know we can do it the right way, when we're not going to put our brand and our customers at risk. Hey, Chris, you're now in charge of food safety. You and the team go figure it out. And if you can't, we're not going to do this. But we're not going to do it until you say yes. And back then, it wasn't a thing. Like, you didn't just like drop the mic and walk off. But he did leave. He walked out of the room and shut the door. I'm scared to death, folks. And everybody kind of listened to me for answers. I didn't have any answers. But fortunately, there were some really great, smart people at KFC. In between myself and a really great team of engineers and food safety people, we did the unthinkable. We followed all the principles of risk management. We looked at the core risk causality, and we essentially re-engineered all of the KFCs, all 5,000 of them, not all 5,000, but most of them, within 9 months. And what we did the following. We actually totally re-engineered everything from food delivery to storage in the cooler. We redid our equipment lineup in the kitchen to keep things even more separated. And then we also focused in on the human behavior side. Remember, it's not just data, it's not just computers, it's also human understanding, integration, interaction. We had to retrain a lot of people. And so we at KFC were the very first national restaurant chain to embrace and require as a condition of employment, every single store manager, assistant manager, and shift supervisor were trained in ServSafe certification. You guys ever go into a restaurant, you see the little brochure, the certificate up on the wall, ServSafe certification? It means that every single person in that store that's managing has basically been certified in how to serve food safely and cook food safely and avoid cross-contamination. All right, so here's the other test question. How many of you have Purell hand sanitizers either in your pocketbook or in your glove compartment of your car? Back then, it was a brand new thing. It was like amazing technology. We were the very first restaurant chain to put Purell hand sanitizers both in the kitchen and also out front for our customers to, again, try to reduce the cross-contamination as much as we could. And so after we did all this, and then we tested to make sure it worked, so we did independent testing, folks, so we didn't just continue to run along, and we found out that it worked. In fact, in the first year alone, we converted over 150 KFC stores to include Taco Bell's. And the following year, we did 450. This co-branding craze essentially changed the entire financial trajectory of Kentucky Fried Chicken for the next decade and fueled the growth of Yum Brands itself as a global concept, because they basically took co-branding, they took it every place. We found a way to say yes. And that's the big lesson for us as a risk and insurance community is when we do our jobs well, when we're able to deploy what we know from a risk management and from an insurance standpoint, we enable innovation, we enable creativity, we enable the successful navigation of change. So those are two stories from the boat. Let me tell you the third and final story before I introduce you to Grace. And it's the story that I'm living today. This is my company. I got a bunch of crazy people working at Decisely, and I love them dearly. And this isn't about Decisely, this is about small business. I'm going to tell you about the small business in just a moment. But we're a small employer. We've got about 97 employees. We're headquartered here in Atlanta. I have offices in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, and in Sacramento, California. And what we do is we solve for small business challenges in employee benefits and HR. That's what we do. We're also an interesting, unique animal in that we're a B Corp. Anyone ever heard of a B Corp before? I see a couple of hands over here. So a B Corp is a for-profit company with a social mission of doing good. So think of a C Corp or an S Corp or an LLC, for all for-profit companies. We like making money too. We're a for-profit company with a social mission of doing good. Well, our mission field is small business. And if you'll pardon that turn of phrase in terms of mission field, it's something that we feel really strongly about. And let me tell you why. Because small businesses in the United States employ over 60 million, 40% of the entire US employed population. It is the economic engine of our nation. Large companies don't become large companies instantaneously, they start out as small companies. And this is where creativity and innovation occur. You know, Google started out in a garage, right? So did Apple, and it grew to a monstrous company. We need a healthy small business community. And so for us at Decisely, this is where we focus. Here are some of the challenges that small businesses have. Only 50% of small businesses offer health insurance to their employees. So out of the 60 million people employed in small business, that means 20 or 30 million people have to go get insurance on their own, often at a much higher cost, out of pocket, and typically poor coverage. So if we can fix that, we've improved people's lives. Number two, I think there's about 300 people in this room. One of the biggest challenges, kind of things, risk management things that we don't think about is disability. So out of the roughly 300 people in this room, there's a 1 in 5 probability, that's 60 of you. Sorry, I'm kind of ballparking these tables right through here, all you people right here. 1 in 5, you will be disabled for longer than 90 days at least once in your career. And 20 of the 60 right in here will never return, either permanently disabled or worse. But if you're employed in a large business, you're probably offered short-term disability or long-term disability, right? Most of you have it if you work for a large company. In a small company, only 10% of small businesses are able to offer disability coverage to their employees. The only safety net these people have is either workers' compensation if it happens on the job, or if they happen to have some retirement savings. Speaking of retirement, small businesses, 98% of large businesses offer a 401k plan with a match. Only 20% of small businesses can afford to offer any retirement solution to their employees. And if you don't save at work, folks, you're probably not saving as much as you should. We have a retirement crisis in the United States. So when you combine all that together, there's this immense portion of the economy called small business that it has fundamental challenges. And so what we dedicate ourselves to is trying to address that as an industry. And so it's not just Decisely, but it's also other companies specializing in InsurTech solutions for small businesses. And so the big thing going on right now is collective sourcing, okay? Collective sourcing. So if you're AIG, Home Depot, Delta Airlines, UPS, you've got thousands of employees. You've got purchasing scale. So you can deliver high quality employee benefits, disability, life insurance to your employee population. Small businesses don't have that scale, but just kind of straight economics. If you can combine these small businesses together into a collective purchasing pool, they can get the same sort of cost advantages and coverage advantages as large companies. By the way, in the P&C world, what do we call that? A group captive. So we're doing the same thing, folks, in the employee benefits world, taking a page out of the property casualty world, and it's happening in two ways. The first on the retirement side is something called a multiple employer plan. You can do this today, where small businesses can bind together to lower the cost of providing 401k and other retirement solutions to their employees. And Decisely is launching that for our small business clients. That's a story for another day. But the big thing going on right now is from the current administration and a new ruling from the Department of Labor. It's called Association Health Plans. Association health plans basically, or the new ruling basically encourages associations and franchisees to extend group purchasing to small business organizations. And it's a big idea. It gives the small business a fighting chance, just like Delta got a fighting chance from the government well over a decade before in 9/11. Now they're able to give small businesses at least a fighting chance of deploying more insurance and more benefits to small businesses. And in fact, at our company with our clients, we survey all of our association and franchisees as a screening tool to see whether or not an association health plan is good for them. And we surveyed over 1,000 small businesses representing over 40,000 full-time employees. 81% of them said, we want association health plans. Now, I'm really hoping, just for my own company's benefit, but also specifically for my small business community, that this doesn't become a political issue, right? Right now it hasn't so much because Democrats and Republicans and independents all own small businesses and they all want it. And we can deliver wonderful benefits and wonderful cost advantages to small businesses without federal subsidies or state subsidies. This is just good for the economy and good for the community. And so we're really excited over that. So, but let's take it beyond concept. What does that really mean? So, real live example. We launched an association health plan to a national franchisor, essentially. By the way, they're headquartered here in Atlanta, so this is another hometown story. I won't name the firm, but they make a lot of auto parts. You can probably figure it out. And they have 22,500 independent owners across the United States. The average number of employees for each one of these owners is 8. These are micro businesses, folks. And they are in the most harm's way in terms of getting great benefits for their employees. When we launched this association health plan, and by the way, we do this for all of our clients, but we tracked, in this example, we tracked the first 100 clients that we brought into the association health plan. And here's what we found. It worked. 35% of these small businesses were able to offer benefits for the first time ever. We're growing the marketplace, growing access to health insurance. As importantly, these same small businesses, the one that had benefits before, so 50% remember had or didn't have benefits, well the 50% that did have benefits, when we looked at what happened when they went into the association health plan, they saved on average over $1,000 per employee. And by the way, that's shared with the employer and the employee because the employer pays for part of it and the employee pays for part of it, so everybody won. And here's the one thing that surprised me, and I just loved it. This gave me even more confidence in human nature. A lot of those employers, in fact 36% of them, didn't just pocket the money. They added new benefits to their employees. And so if before all they could afford to provide was medical insurance, they added dental and vision, or maybe even things like disability. Everybody won, and everybody's winning. And so for us, back to how I started this, we as a risk and insurance industry, we have the opportunity when we do our jobs well and when we help others to create and to innovate and to manage change, good things happen. And we can make a difference in our nation, in our society, our friends and neighbors' lives down the street. And so we all have a choice, and I make this choice every morning when I get up and I look myself in the mirror, is how am I going to make a difference today, and how do I plan for making a difference tomorrow? And I think that's our challenge as an industry. So, want to meet Grace? Ready to meet Grace? I got to read some of this. Rear Admiral Amazing Grace Hopper was born in 1902, and she died in 1992. Sorry, I'm getting there. After graduating with a degree in mathematics from Vassar in the early 1900s, no small feat for a woman back then, she went on to get a PhD in mathematics from male-dominated Yale University in 1934, in the heights of the Great Depression. And after she got her PhD, she went back to Vassar to teach. When World War II broke out, Amazing Grace tried to enlist in the U.S. Navy, as any good patriot would. They turned her down because she was too old at the age of 30. But she's a pretty tenacious lady, our Grace, and so she enlisted in the U.S. Naval Reserve, where, and this is the part I got to read, she was assigned to the Bureau of Ordnance Computation Project at Harvard University, where she learned to program one of the early computers, a Mark I. She was helping to figure out the shell trajectories for the Navy and for the Army so they'd be more accurate so they could win the war faster, essentially is what she was doing. And so there she was doing all this. So post-war in private enterprise, she oversaw programming for the now famous UNIVAC computer. And in 1952, she and her team created the first ever compiler for a computer language. A compiler is basically a language of English commands that translates into ones and zeros that a computer can do something with. That compiler was the precursor for the computer language COBOL. COBOL was the dominant computer language throughout the 60s and 70s and well into the 80s. In fact, I learned to program COBOL when I was in graduate school at the University of Georgia. And I see some head noddings out there as well. So Amazing Grace was part of that. Well, Grace retired from the U.S. Navy in 1966, but because she was such an amazing lady, she was brought back to do some pioneering computer work at the age of 60. Remember, she couldn't enlist in the Navy at age 33 because she was too old, but they brought her back to active duty at age 60. They brought her back to standardize computer communication amongst military computing systems across the Navy and the Army. And when she retired from the Navy for the second time in 1986, that's when I finished graduate school at the University of Georgia, go Dogs, she was 79 years old. And she was the highest ranking woman in the U.S. Navy, a Rear Admiral. She broke the class ceiling, folks. She shattered it. And she also retired as the oldest living serving officer in the U.S. Navy at the age of 79. After she passed away in 2016, President Barack Obama awarded her with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This lady is amazing, just based upon her own biography. But this is how she changed my life. So probably 20 years ago, I was preparing for a presentation not too much dissimilar to this. And I was looking for wonderful quotes on risk management. And I'm searching the internet and trying to find stuff. And I ran across something that Grace said, and it changed my life. And it focused my career in everything that I've done since then, in the risk and insurance, as an ERM consultant, and now as an insurtech entrepreneur. And Grace Hopper changed my life. And this is how I have focused my efforts ever since. A ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are for. We as a risk and insurance industry help to get the boat out of the harbor. And to get it to where it needs to be, we help our nation and our clients and our employers accomplish and innovate and grow and take risk and deploy capital. That's what we do, and that's how we add value as a nation. That's Grace. She's my hero. I hope you appreciate her as much as I do. So, get your boats out of the harbor, folks. Let's set sail and let's go make a difference. And so now I got my final ask of you. You see these cameras located here? There's one here, there's one here. We videoed this because we're going to let students take a look at it for better or for worse. So I want all of you to stand up, face the camera, big round of applause, and welcome the next generation of leaders to this industry that we love so much. Come on, stand up. Let's get it going. Come on. Thank you all for your time. I really enjoyed being here.